Assalamu alaikum, family. You're tuned in to the Sajda Wendy Muhammad channel, the Sajda channel. And this is the Sajda Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. And today, we're going to do a follow-up. If you all have any questions about yesterday's class where we talked about sales theory, I'll go over a few things this morning, but let's talk about it. All right. Remember, the theme was when you believe in something, you have a moral and ethical obligation to sell it. All right. So be a friend, tell a friend. I'll be right back on the other side of a few short commercials and a beautiful prayer.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided thee right, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. You're tuned in to the Sajda Morning Coffee Talks, and I'm your host, Sajda Wendy Muhammad. How are you all doing on this cold and blistery winter morning? You know what? It's all right, y'all. It's just time. And as the earth keeps moving, we'll get warmer. Don't worry, it'll get better. Um, but the beautiful thing, I was thinking about this yesterday. I said, with all this snow and moisture, do you know how beautiful the spring is going to be, inshallah? Do you know how amazing the flowers and the crops should be, inshallah, with all this beautiful moisture? So we're really, really blessed. So come this season, if you all had a garden, if you planted seeds, if there's crops, they should be coming up real nicely in a few short days. So just hang in there. So welcome. Couple announcements. Let's see, what do I have to tell you all? Remind you all about the Messenger's Residence, the screening that we're going to be doing on February 7th. It is a collaboration between myself and Dr. Leonard McKinnis from the University of Illinois, Department of Religion. And we created and are continuing to create this series called The Messenger's Residence. And it is produced from the home. And we're doing a screening. We got a bunch of other stuff planned as we continue to roll out these episodes. But you got to come check out the episode. We're going to do a screening of the episode, and then we're going to do a talk back. And so I'm really, really super excited about the talk back as well. And so we're still formulating and working on that. But the in-person reservations are almost gone. So, but we got plenty of online reservations, so you can sit in your warm, toasty home and check it out. All right. So we're excited about that. There's so much. I'm always holding back when it comes to what we're working on for the house for a lot of different reasons, and I can't wait to share. You know, we got the Windows program coming up, and we're real close to announcing putting that out there. I think we'll wait till after Savior's Day because I'm almost done with the database, y'all. So you'll get to go out there, and you're going to go to ElijahMuhammadHouse.com. You're going to click a link that's going to say register your coin and activate your lifetime membership. So if you have this coin, get ready to think about what name you're going to put it in, and be prepared to be getting all these great benefits that we're going to roll out to you. And the benefits are going to continue to expand and grow, from discounts on different things to special event access to free tours. So it's I'm excited. I'm really, really excited about it. What else is going on with me? The book, y'all, is doing good. The Art and Science of Business. My last book did really well, and inshallah, this one will continue to do well. It hasn't caught up yet with The Mind of an Entrepreneur, because this one's like a textbook. It's going to make you think. And some of you have called me and said, hey, this should be in schools. This should be a curriculum. I agree. So I think you just need to call your local college, institution, university, wherever you want to call, and tell them that. And I'm happy to give them the course. But it is actually a course. We have some people in the Work Ready Wealth Ready Fellowship program that are benefiting from some of the classes. So yeah, we're happy to share it and do more. And the next book is on the way. So I've been setting aside a certain amount of time each day to write, and that giving birth to that little godly book as well. So this new one is coming up. It's called The Making of Sajda House. And it is about the journey of preservation, but it's also about a little bit about my life, a little bit about a little bit of a preservation guide. So you'll see it. There's nothing that's been like this before. I'm not a Chat GPT book type of person. So a lot of people say, with Chat GPT, but when I write something, I will guarantee you that nobody else has seen it or heard it. And if I do, I quote it, I'll let you know. Because I want it to be unique. I don't want it to be something that somebody can just go and get from AI or Chat GPT, because the artificial intelligence is one thing, and it's great for statistics and things like that, and I'll use it for that. But the real intelligence that's being downloaded into me, I want the challenge of putting that down on paper. So I'm excited about that. We've been covering on the show sales theory. We talked about that extensively yesterday. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions or comments about the show yesterday. Okay, it was based on the quote from Marshall Silver that says, when you believe in something, you have a moral and ethical obligation to sell it. In another one of the sales classes that I took from him, he talked about getting someone else to beg you for something that you're selling. And I remember thinking, it's so interesting, because I think depending upon your upbringing, but especially if you are indoctrinated in the industrial revolutionized educational process that leads you to factories in corporate America, meaning what? I did really, really well in school from all my life. And even as a little girl, I remember my mom saying that she picked up our report cards one day and she looked at, because she knew I always got all A's, and she looked on there and the teacher had gave me a C. She said she turned around and was like, wait a minute. And she said she looked, it was a black teacher. She said, should have known. So she went over to her, and the lady was like, because they used to have these big ledgers back then with the grades. She said, oh my God, I made a mistake. She got an A in the class. And my mother was like, I thought so. That's what I thought. I'm saying that to say that that educational process groomed us for servitude, to be a good servant, to be a good corporate servant, but it groomed us for servitude. Stand in line, follow instructions, do what you're told, keep your desk cleaned. And outside of that, my entrepreneurship journey was not formal. It was more, I guess you could say it was more informal, from my father having conversations with me about business. And deep down inside, I wanted to go into business, but I didn't say it at school. I never said it to my counselors. I never said it to my teachers. I remember my English teacher, Miss Bernstein. I went to a lot of primarily Jewish schools. And Miss Bernstein, she was this really cool, creative writing AP English teacher. And I was always a phenomenal writer. Like, I could write anything from poems and poetry to essays to theses. I was in a 6th grade PhD program. So I remember her telling us to do some writing about what we wanted to do when we became adults, or what we thought we wanted to do. And I remember writing this essay, and I said everything except the profession. And I remember her saying to me, she gave me a B+ on that essay. And I went to her and I was like, what? She said, I said, I followed the instructions. She said, no, but you didn't say whether you wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever. And I remember not wanting to say that I wanted to be a business person. So I said, I wanted to be creative. I said, I wanted to be influential. I wanted to be revered and respected. I wanted to be, I want to have certain freedoms as a Black woman. I came at it all from a theory. And I talked to her. I said, I did follow the instructions. I didn't name it. I never put a name on it. And she ended up changing it to an A- because she still didn't all the way agree with me. I think she knew I was right. But that's how much the language around business really was kind of demeaned. So when I would hear things like this in these sales classes that I ended up taking as adults, like when you believe in something, you have a moral and ethical obligation to sell it. The way I was able to understand that is I thought about my belief and my belief system or my belief process as a Muslim in the Nation of Islam. And I said, okay, teach and train. Okay. And that's how I was able to bridge that gap. And then when I heard things like getting someone to beg you for something that you're selling and make them think it was your idea, I felt like that was so evil. And then I thought about it. I said, man, that is what they do. We go to the store and we save up to get this purse or outfit. And we really go into the store thinking that it was our idea to get that item. It was our idea to get the car. It was our idea to, buy the outfit. But really, it wasn't. It was very skillful manipulation, marketing, PR, public relations, and advertising. They're not all the same, but they're used now by companies to push not only a product, but a lifestyle or a brand. And so they put PR around it. And when you start to study it, you can see the propaganda or the public relations angle in the messaging. And that's why I want you all, I talk about this a lot in the book, where I want you all to really start to study PR, public relations, and propaganda so that you can see it in language and you can recognize how to navigate the system that this propaganda or PR is pushing. Because that's all this world is knowing how to navigate different systems. So if you can't navigate the system, then you can't matriculate through this world. And you can't liberate yourself from the system until you at least know how to recognize when you are part of a system. And I think people get it with the obvious stuff, the judicial system, the educational system, the healthcare system. I think people can get that. But some of these other systems that control us and make us think that certain things are our ideas are a little bit harder to recognize. Like I said, when you put that new car on your vision board and you say, I want this, that car was suggested to you in some kind of subliminal way. It was suggested to you, and then maybe you saw it, or you saw the car and it represented a lifestyle that had been being suggested to you. These are all very important things because sometimes we don't know when something's our idea or not. Sometimes we don't know. And so that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about sales. We talk about marketing and how marketing is used now to the point where oftentimes it's difficult to tell the difference between news and marketing or news and PR. Ever since we started this 24-hour news cycle, the media has become watered down. It used to be that the media or journalism was almost like that fourth arm of government. It was information source that the public could go and rely on to find out what was happening in the world or in government or in any particular situation. But what's happening now, we can't discern. I mean, you see, they just arrested a journalist. They arrested Don Lemon, and people, I don't know if he's guilty of what they've charged him of or not. I don't think that anybody's religion or belief system should be impacted. So I don't believe nobody should be running up in churches or mosques or synagogues or temples. People have the right to worship the way they want, but the point I'm making is that the lines have blurred when it becomes the media, because journalists don't always act like journalists anymore. This is not talking about Don Lemon. Journalists don't always act like journalists anymore. And the media doesn't always represent itself as an information source anymore. It's marketing, it's campaigning. People are paying for news stories to influence you and using what traditionally people relied on as a information source as a way to influence and get people to move and sell something. So all of these are things that we have to learn how to recognize. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to free ourselves from these matrices that we're in. Yes, you're right, brother. The restaurant industry, it's just, and I learned this as a consultant. And here's the interesting thing. They've watered down the word consultant so much. Even when I hear it and people say it, some people think that if they're doing independent contracting that they're a consultant, and you hear it a lot. But for me, as a business consultant who was traveling as a consultant, I had to learn the language, the culture, the community of various different industries. So if you're going to go into healthcare, you should understand the healthcare industry. See, a lot of times we just know that one aspect that we work in. So a lot of times doctors just know the clinical side. And then more narrowly, they just know the clinical side that is their discipline. Sometimes administrators may only know that side of it. Sometimes nurses may only know the healthcare industry from the standpoint of a nurse, right? So it's important to know the entire industry. And I'll say this in layman's terms, so you can recognize game when it comes, if you plan on matriculating through that industry. What is the restaurant game? What's the restaurant industry? There are certain standards for markups, for pricing, for supplies. There's different grades of material. There's restaurant grade materials. There's healthcare grade materials, even your tables. So if you need a stainless steel table to use in a clinical setting, you don't get the stainless steel table off of Amazon. You got to go get a medical grade table. If you need a stainless steel table in a restaurant, you go get a restaurant grade table. This is just, I'm just giving you different industries. If you're in the automotive industry, there are certain things in the automotive industry that you have to be aware of. Don't, even if you're just a salesperson, study the industry. Who are the players? How do they price the cars? How do they move the automobiles? What's the markup? And the beautiful thing is that we have this World Wide Web right here. Program your algorithms on social media so that it's giving you things that support what you're studying. So there's language in those industries, the salespeople, all of it. And these are things that we should study if we are in any industry in particular. You should know it. The hotel industry. I was studying for a long time. I've wanted to own a hotel. I wanted to own a hospitality brand. I still do. A hospitality brand, and I'm working on it. Hospitality brand that that takes care of people, whether it's from a entertainment or a historical tour standpoint, whether it's from a hotel you stay in, whether it's a spa. Every business that I own, I make sure that there's training in hospitality. Even in healthcare, in the spa industry, there's a whole separate group of classes and training I would take my people through to make sure that they had a spirit of hospitality. So in that particular industry, something I'm learning about hotels, there was a show, I want to say it was either Squawk Box or something on CNBC that was talking about hotels. And I won't say the brand because some of you all may be in one now. But there's a particular brand, hotel brand, that has a big name that they said is no longer really in the hotel business. They said that they are in the rewards business. And they said that the hotels are owned by a combination of different people. There's some corporate owned ones. There's certain ones that are developer owned, franchise owned, investor owned. That's why oftentimes within the same brand, you can go to a hotel and you'll be like, man, that wasn't a good experience. And then somebody else can say, oh, I went to that brand over here and it was a really great experience. But that's because the properties are owned by different people. And they're going into this really deep analysis about how when you find a particular hotel in a city or whatever that you like, and let's say you like it because you realize that they really are clean, maybe the food is good, maybe the service is good, then your best bet is when you go back to that city to stay in that hotel. But to assume that because that hotel is part of this brand, that when you go to the next city, you can pick that brand and get the same experience is a mistake, because they're not in that business anymore. And I just thought that was fascinating. I said, because we are very brand brainwashed or brand hypnotized in this country. So if we see something that is, if we like Samsung, we go, okay, I'm down. I want the next Samsung. But to say that about a hotel is interesting, even with fast foods. Most of us know that when we go to McDonald's in Texas and we go to McDonald's in Idaho, it really should be the same. It generally all tastes the same. But what they're saying is you can no longer do that and make that assumption with hotels. And they gave one really gross example. They said that it used to be the industry standard where housekeeping had a manifest of different people of when you would be checking in and out. And if you were there for 10 days, then when housekeeping went in, they would do, and this is my terminology and this is not theirs, they might do what they call light cleaning. Change your towels, kind of wipe everything down, make up the bed. They used to change the sheets all the time. Maybe vacuum, light cleaning. And then when you check out, supposedly, they would do a little bit of more heavier cleaning. Okay. But now they said, especially since COVID, one, a lot of times you have to tell them if you want service. So they don't automatically come to your room every single day and, just do the light cleaning. But even between guests, they don't deep clean anymore. And they talked about how there are some hotels, especially more like the boutique hotels, where they do just really take pride in their cleanliness and all of that. But a lot of these that are maybe depending on the franchisee, depending on the developer that owns the hotel, that particular hotel, depending on the investor, they may not be investing a lot in the cleanliness of those rooms, even though the property is a big, beautiful property and it is owned by a brand that you have come to rely on. And when they said that, I said, you know what? I have noticed that there's certain particular brands that I have noticed that they really into the awards and points, but they don't be cleaning up them rooms like they need to. So these are things to study if you're in that industry. Because if you work for a particular brand, is that brand still in the hotel business? Or is that brand now in the reward points and credit card business? So it's going to make a difference in terms of how they make decisions. It's going to make a difference in terms of how you matriculate through the company. It's going to make a difference even if you are a franchisor or franchisee. It's going to make a difference. So it's important, to know these things. I remember when I was a franchisee for Massage Envy, people would come in all the time and say, you should do this and you should do that. Not even understanding that as a franchisee, I can only do what they allow me to do. And it was one of the things that I can say I hated most about the business. But the thing I love most about that business was that I learned so much about franchising, about systems, and about the spa industry, so that when I open my independent spa, it will have all the things that I learned that are needed in a franchise spa. But it comes from studying the industry. So study to recognize systems, recognize patterns, learn how to manipulate the pattern if possible. And I'm going to say this one last thing before we go. If you all don't have any questions, I'll read the chat and see if you guys put anything in there. A lot of people now are realizing that they need to have an additional income stream. And oftentimes that additional income stream is not a second or third job. It's a business. Okay. And some of us look at going into business because we think, oh, this is a great way to just scam some people out of money, or this is a great way to just, get up on a lot of money. But that really is not if you talk about big business and all that, that's not really what business really is. Business is an opportunity for you to transfer what you believe and what you care about to somebody else. It's an opportunity for you to sustain yourself based on who you are. It's an opportunity for you to make a living in a manner that is pleasing to Allah. And in that process, as you're improving and getting better, you can make more and more and more money. But the business world is such that until you get to a certain mindset, it doesn't stabilize. It's always going to be going up and down. Money is like that. See, a lot of us are tricked into thinking that when you are wealthy or when you own a business, the money is going to flow in a very consistent manner like it does with your job. See, with your job, you get your paycheck every 2 weeks. Money in general doesn't work like that. Whether it's the stock market, whether it's the business that you run, it never is a consistent flow on a long-term basis. It almost always is going to be up here one day, and you're going to have to plan and organize for that, and then it may go down. That's the journey of business, is the roller coaster ride, the cycles of money that you're riding. So you can either fight the cycles or you can ride the cycles. And some people say, well, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just go get a job? I think that was an easy option for a lot of people in many of the past decades. But what a lot of people are seeing now is that sometimes jobs aren't consistent. I think the average tenure at a job now is 3 years, and that's probably long. I think I read 3 to 5 years somewhere else and 3 years somewhere else. So we have to be preparing to have these other streams of income. So as we navigate through life, this particular job that we have, it may not last beyond year 3. You may work there for a year and then they fire you. Nowadays, people want to do what they want to do. And they don't necessarily want that. The other piece of that is that because you got a small number of jobs out here now that is restricting people, the requirements for that job get more stringent. So if you're a returning citizen, maybe you can't work at this particular company, or you can't have this job if you don't have certain credit, if you don't live in a certain neighborhood, if you don't look a certain way, if you don't have the right psychological profile. Many corporate jobs now, they're going to give you a psychological profile. If you don't fit the psychological profile, you won't get the job. I've interviewed for jobs where I didn't have the psychological profile, even though my background was stellar in terms of experience and I matched up perfectly. They've said to me, you don't got the psychological profile. There was one situation where this was years ago, there was a project management position with a very famous person here in Chicago. And somebody had told me about it, and I went and I applied, and and it got down to me and another person. And when they did the psychological profile, they came to me and they said, you don't fit the psychological profile. And I knew immediately that I didn't psychologically fit it, because I have been mentally trying to get myself into a space to figure out how I could make myself take this job, because the person was so well known and so famous. But their psychological profile. So There's any number of things that could weed you out. This is why a lot of our youth are graduating from college with master's degrees, because they talk them into going into something and majoring in something that it's not monetizable. Sometimes it is, and they just can't find a job. But I hear people all the time like, I'm going to school for neuropsychology. Okay, so that's going to be a narrow field if you want to actually use that degree. Or are you being trained to understand that I can take those skills and that knowledge that I learned in neuropsychology to do any number of different things? But it's hard to make that switch oftentimes for our youth. And so they end up finding themselves in a position where they're saying, I saw a lady saying, I applied for about 150 jobs and I only got 5 callbacks. It's because a lot of even the, these job boards and stuff, a lot of that's just bots and ways to gather information. If you really want to work a job, I would suggest you go find a staffing company. Go find a company and let them look for a job for you. And then be okay with taking some independent contracting positions. So find a staffing firm that can find you some independent contracting positions. They may be 3 months, they may be 5 months, 6 months. And then some of those, if you go and do a really good job, can turn into a permanent position. That's oftentimes how companies hire nowadays, because they don't want to just hire somebody off the street. So they'll bring in somebody on a temporary basis, and they may try out 2 or 3 people on a temporary basis just so that they can see what the fit is. And once they get the fit right, then they offer you a position. So I would say, I put in this lady's chat, I said, listen, stop applying on these job boards and just saturating your resume all over the place, and go find a staffing firm. A lot of times you can go register with 2 or 3 of them, and that staffing firm can help find something, because those salespeople only get paid if they place you. You shouldn't have to pay them. So that's just a tip. If you're looking for a job, or you may decide, I kind of like this independent contracting thing. I like going to a company for 6 months and then going somewhere else for 5 months. Some people really like that. But get that stress out of your head that you have to have this permanent traditional job. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, there's not as many of them around as there used to be. And in many cases, they're going to be going away. So consider that. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat here. Let's see what we got. All right. That is me saying assalamu alaikum to y'all. Brother Lamont says, wa alaikum salam. Good morning and happy Saturday. Same to you, Brother Lamont. Nubia Latifa's in the house. She says, happy Saturday, Sister Saja and the Winner's Circle. Yes, ma'am. Happy Saturday to you as well. Assyria Shakir says, assalamu alaikum. So, wa alaikum salam. Brother George Jackson chimed in from Facebook and says, good morning, everyone. He said, also, great example. I learned that McDonald's is a franchisor and not in the business of selling food anymore. That is exactly right. McDonald's has been in the franchising business and not in the food business. I mean, I think if they were, they would probably do more about selling real food. But a lot of these companies are not necessarily trying to sell you good and healthy, nutritious food. They are driving you into their business because they're selling something else. And McDonald's, a big, huge, powerful company, is an example. I think it started out for them as food sales. I really do. But and you'll see it with a lot of companies. You know how like you start going to a restaurant, and then once they start franchising, then things change. Maybe their little nuggets get a little smaller. Maybe they start selling some fake food. Maybe they go to one of these other big companies and get prepared meals. You know, a lot of these restaurants you go to, especially a lot of the chain restaurants, they don't actually make that food in the back. They just heat it up. They buy it from somewhere else. That's why it's oftentimes so unhealthy, because it's filled with so many preservatives, because it's got to last the transport process. It's got to make it through being frozen and then reheat it, you know. So that happens with a lot of these franchise. That's why I love being in Chicago, because we have a lot of independent restaurants that really do cook the food. But many of these places, they just heat it up. It comes frozen. It's like it comes from a plant. And if you were around a lot of these restaurants early in the morning, you'll see the truck that pulls up. I'm not going to say the name of the companies, but you'll see the truck that pulls up and brings the meals. So when you go on and you say, I want the such and such pasta and chicken with the Alfredo sauce, it came frozen that morning. And oftentimes you're there like, can they add a little bit of this or that? And they're like, because they can't, because it's already like that. All they're doing is taking the plastic off and either heating it up if it's an individual thing, or they get big troughs of it. And all they're doing is just reheating it, adding a little water and reheating it. So keep that in mind even when you go to restaurants. So I try to go to independent restaurants where I know they cooking my stuff right there. I want to see you back there chopping up. I want to know you back there chopping up. I want to smell it. I want to know that this is real food that, you know, that you're making. So it's something else to think about, because the industries can be very tricky, and you have to study them so that you know. So remember this: when you believe in something, you have a moral and ethical obligation to sell it. Also remember that we are, some people call it matrix, some people call it systems, but we are inundated in interactive systems that commingle. And in order for you to navigate those systems, you got to be able to recognize the system. You got to be able to study the system. And then you want to be able to figure out how to escape or remove yourself from the system. Why is this important? Because as the dollar continues to tumble, as the American economy crumbles, the things that we once relied upon, we are not going to be able to rely on anymore. If you notice, even now, a lot of predictions about the economy, they can't even make. I was watching an economic advisor on television saying, you know, we used to look at unemployment rates to determine what the economy is doing, but now that particular system isn't working anymore. They can't even predict the weather anymore. I was watching the news the other day here in Chicago, and the newscaster, no, the meteorologist, or I don't know if it's really a meteorologist or not, but the weather person walks out on the camera and say, it's still cold. So a lot of systems, and I don't want you to get scared of this, because it doesn't mean you're not going to survive and thrive. You actually may do better once these systems are no longer in place and restricting you. You just got to know how to navigate. And you got to know that sometimes as these standards go away, or as these systems go away, some of the standards will go away as well. So we may have a show where we'll talk about all of this, but understand how to navigate this. So if you work a job right now, wherever you at, study the industry. What is it? If you like it, if you want to be in it, go, okay, let me see what's the game? What's the author game? What's the notebook game? What's the designer purse game? What's the clothes game? What's the new hair game? How they doing it? Used to be you always had to go to a hairdresser in a salon. Now hairdressers have these suites that they're in, and you go to a little room and it's just them in the suite and they do your hair. It's a different vibe. It's a different game if you're in that industry. All right. It used to be when you went and got your hair braided, you had to bring your hair with you. Now, a lot of these places I know, we got hair. Games, systems, processes, always changing. Okay, family. Okay, so don't forget the Messenger's residence. You can stay in the comforts of your warm, cozy home and check us out online. Get your commemorative Elijah coin, and most importantly, just support the movement. You can make a donation. You can go to Cash App, Sajda Enterprises. You can Zelle. It's all ways are right there. Get the book, but support. Hit the super chat right here. Support. We want to continue to bring high level information to you at an affordable cost, so that as your consciousness, let me say this last thing. Money and consciousness are tied together. Okay. And this has nothing to do with whether or not you're a nice person or a smart person. It has to do with your relationship with money and your relationship with how you convey what it is you want and need to the world. Okay. And a lot of us are challenged with that, whether it's because of some trauma we're dealing with, whether it's because of our socioeconomic status that we actually believe in. It's a whole number of different things. All right. If your consciousness, your vibrational level is not at the point right now where you can pay $10,000 to come to a mastermind course with Sister Sajda, if your consciousness or your vibrational level is not at the point where you could pay $2,500 a session for Sister Sajda, I am offering a lot of services so that I can meet you where you are vibrationally. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to vibrate at that level with you, but I want to offer services and tools that can help you get to a certain level. Now, some of y'all might be saying, well, I would never pay $10,000 for that, or I would never pay $2,500 for that. You probably would if you had, if that $2,500 didn't mean as much to you as it does right now at your current consciousness level. Something to think about. All right. So whatever your vibration is right now, today, that is reflected in what is in your bank account, whatever that vibration level is, and whatever you feel like you can spare based on your vibration, make that amount in a donation. All right, family. Okay, happy Saturday. We will be seeing you all, inshallah, next week. May Allah bless you with more goodness than you've ever experienced or imagined. Be good to somebody today. Check on somebody today. These are tough times because it's hard a lot of times for people to be in the house by themselves. Sometimes people are just inundating themselves with movies and negative thoughts, and they need to have a conversation with somebody. You notice now that when we're hibernating and people can't get out and can't do things, that when you talk to them, they're just kind of going on and on and on and on, jumping from subject to subject to subject. It's because a lot of people mentally need stimulation and need help during this time. It's cold outside, which is depressing. The news is scary. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of scary stuff happening. So let's be there for one another. Let's give one another a sense of love and reality and help boost one another's faith in this time. I call this a vibrational cocktail that can be very dangerous. Okay. So, all right, family, be a friend, tell a friend about the show, make your donation, and we will see you all, inshallah, next week. Assalamu alaikum.
I have received so many blessings, so many very good to look at, whether you own them or not. It's a pleasure just to look at such presents. Why, I have never witnessed so many presents. I think I have to build me a house for presents. This shows what Allah can do for you and me if we believe in Him.
There is nothing that we could not accomplish in the name of God. You know what your problem is? You don't have even a worthy goal to strive after. I'm going to give you an assignment today. Here's an assignment. Is there something you want? Do you want something? Something that you want, but you have not been able to get it? Huh? Close your eyes. Do you see it? Whatever it is that you want, first envision it. You got the picture. Do you see it? All right, now the question is, you have to claim what you see. I claim this. I claim it. I believe with all my heart in the name of God that I'll bring what is in my imagination into reality. We're gonna bring it back like it never was. I see in the dome the name Allah written in Arabic. But I can't just dream, I gotta go to work. How do you bring it into concrete reality? First, without faith, you can't work the vision.